this bit. Got it.
Lovely. Well, we'll make a start because I've only really given to an hour to 15 minutes, but it might be an hour. Who knows? It depends on the open discussion at the end. But I probably know most of you. But in case you don't know me, I'm Emily, and I'm the co-CEO from Community First Oxfordshire. And we're a charity that, among other things, have supported community transport for many, many years. And we are continuing to do so, but very much in partnership with other organisations. And we used to hold, I think, more than one, maybe 2 or 3 community transport network meetings a year. But we've moved now to more of the annual sort of meeting, and we used to have them separate. So we used to have car schemes and minibus schemes, but today we brought you together because I think we have on the agenda Paula and Caroline very kindly have come from CTA UK, and they will be giving the national perspective. So that's very much important for all community transport. And then we'll move on to Tim Darch from the County Council, who will give us a local perspective. And then hopefully we can have time we will have time to have an open discussion on the things that are working well for all of us, but actually some of the quite major challenges. And I've definitely got a few topics I'd like to bring up in that session, but I won't start with that now. I think would you mind in the chat if you could put your name and if you're representing a scheme or you're just here because you're interested, if you could put that in the chat box, that would be lovely.
You're chatting as a guest.
Can you not do it? Is it allowing you to put it in the chat?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it disables it, but anyway, it all seems to be working.
I don't know whether I'm doing it right, mine, but I'm doing it.
Well, thank you. I can see people filling in. Beautiful. Thank you very much. That's probably it for me, actually, because I will probably bring subjects in the open discussion. So I will very kindly hand over now to Paula and Caroline, who hopefully can share their presentation. You should all be able to, but I've got it here just in case.
I am going to try to share my presentation now. There we go. Let's see. Can you guys see my screen now?
It's coming up. Yep.
Yay, fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, so let's just presentation mode so everyone can see it in the big screen. Yeah, there we go. Now you can see the big screen, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, I just want to introduce myself first. So my name is Paula Salazar. I am the development officer for your region. Well, we have 3 development officers in England. I'm going to introduce everyone at the end of the presentation. And we also have Caroline Whitney today with us, who is the director for England. So yeah, we'll be taking any kind of queries that you may have at the end, if there's some time. Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Emily and Community First, of course, for this kind invitation, because I think it's very important to connect with the local networks. And yes, this is an effort that we're also doing from CTA through the Connecting program, which I will explain a little bit in advance later, to connect with all of our members and all of the stakeholders in the regions where we are working. So this is a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. So the first is the CTA manifesto. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the CTA England national priorities and how is this working linked with the Connecting program. Then I'm going to go around the regional priorities that we have set for this region, which is the South Central. And after that, I'm going to invite you kindly to the upcoming events that we have for the region and nationally. And then, yeah, that's the intro for the team and how to stay connected with all of us. Okay, so I am not sure how many of you are members of CTA. I know I have seen a few of you in our regional forums, but if you are part of the community transport, of course, you will know that the CTA has launched a manifesto recently because we have gathered all the concerns from the community, and basically we saw that there's a shrinking bus network, and we have a big problem on aging population, and we are having problems on recruiting new volunteers and new drivers for our community transport. And we're also thinking about what's the future of the NHS going to be and the social care, and how is this going to impact the community transport sector. Also, we are thinking about climate change, because there's a new demand for EV vehicles. And we're also thinking about the cost of living crisis, and it is important that our nations, or four nations, and the regions, and the local level have a strategy for leveling up. So this manifesto is basically to ask the new government to please improve, or give us some guidance on how to improve the community transport sector. So the 5 priorities for our manifesto are modernizing and for growth. The second is improving access to health and social care. The third is investing in community solutions. The fourth one is accelerating community-led climate action. And the fifth is delivering a fair deal. All of these priorities, you will find them in our website, which is going to be in, I'm gonna link it in the next slide, or if you can find it, I will just send the link in a few seconds. So it is important for all of us to join the campaign. Even ourselves as development officers, we have been asked to record a few videos on how to improve the reach of this manifesto. So I'm asking you, please also join our campaign, post on your social media, or email your local candidates. You will also find templates on this website that you can see at the bottom, which is #community-solutions. And you can find the templates over there, so you don't have to go on blank. Or if you need also our support from the development officers, or even from the nations, we are here to help to connect with these local candidates, so we can have a better reach in our campaign. I am not sure if some of you are also doing some work with your local candidates, but it would be nice to hear at the end if there is some work in advance. And if there's any support that we can bring up to the table, also we're happy to help.
I'll just come to check you in, and I'll try and address with.
Yeah, lovely.
Put everyone on mute.
Okay, so the national program. So Connecting program was launched early last year as a strategy to reach out to all of our community transport members and to the wider sector as well. We have been running a few forums nationally and regionally, and these are the 12 priorities that all of you have set for the program. So the first one is volunteer recruitment and retention, which is also linked to staff recruitment and retention. And you have seen it, that it's on the manifesto as well. So it's not only an England priority, but it's on the UK level priority. Of course, influence legislation and regulations. We have been working in the national level to secure some consultations that could benefit the sector. We're also working into research into the sector, and we're understanding the impact of what is the impact that CT brings to the wider sector, and why is it so important in the local level. And also we are working on ensuring that there's a wider scale promotion of CT to the of community transport to the public and stakeholders. This is what we're currently doing through the regional forums, because we are connecting not only with the members, but also with the wider sector. We are also developing and sharing a range of case studies, and because we think that this is important for everyone to find a light on what to do, on what or to see what's working better in other areas. And also we are improving our relationships and connections with the health sector, which you can also see in the manifesto. And it is important as well to work on the social value, because as well it is important to see how can we influence and shape the local and national policy to recognize the social value of the community transport sector. There's also an element of electric vehicles, which you can also see in the manifesto, and improving the relationships and connections into social care and demonstrating what's the impact that we have, which we have connected with social value. And we are currently working also in a national Transport for Health program with my other 2 development officers. And we're also looking into the future for volunteer and community car schemes. So if you are a car scheme, please don't hesitate on contacting us. We can help you and we can support you as well. And we're also, of course, influencing and shaping funding for the sector regionally and nationally. We are building a database, which includes some local funding. So if you are struggling to find funding, please do let us know so we can help to find the right funding in your local and regional area. So what we're doing regionally. So these are the 3 priorities for the South Central region where you are based. And basically we're working in 3 different projects. The first of all is strengthening the healthcare connections, which was the main priority that was set in the last regional forum that we had late last year. We're going to have a following one next month. Then we're going to work on enhancing the stakeholder engagement. We're going to be pulling together a big list of stakeholders and how are we interacting with these stakeholders and how can CTA and other organizations improve these relationships to make things better for CT. And also we are collaborating with local funders to raise the profile of community transport and also to let them understand why is it important to get to and to secure this funding for organizations and how are we impacting the lives of our people. And well, so as I told you before, we have 2 upcoming events. The first one is the Connecting England South Central Regional Forum, which is going to be on the 17th of May at 2 p.m. and it's going to be via Zoom. I'm going to send all the details to Emily so she can share with all of us later on because we don't have the registration yet on the website. So I'm still working on that, but I'll get it ready and send it to everyone. And the second one is that we're going to have 2 big England conference. One of those is going to be in Oxford and the other one is in Manchester. I guess you're going to be joining us in Oxford. This conference is going to be on the 18th of June from 10 to 3:30 p.m. at the old fire station. And you can find the link. I don't know if you can tap it there, but I will just drop all the links at the end so you can find easily all the information. And yes, I mean, if you have contacts in Manchester or that are near to that area, you can also share that there's going to be a conference on the 10th of June. And yep, this is us. As I told you before, Caroline Whitney is here with us, and that's me, development officer for your region. And there's Chanel and Sean, who are also development officers on the region. Chanel covers the north area of the country, and Sean is covering the west side. I cover the east of England, the southeast, the south central. And well, we also have Nick, who is the research and insight manager, and Josiah, who's working on policy. I know he has been in contact with some of you regarding passenger surveys. So if there's any kind of query regarding any of our work, please do contact us. Here's my email, which is paula@ctauk.org, or if you have a more general inquiry about the national work, you can also email us through england@ctauk.org. Yeah, that was all for me now. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. I hope not. But thank you everyone.
Thank you, Paula. I've just had a notification to say that my internet's unstable, which is always good when you're holding a Zoom meeting. It's normally really good. As it's rather than leave questions to the end, has anyone got any questions now? Obviously, this is more of a national perspective, so it's taking up more of those strategic issues that many of us can see very much on the ground. But has anyone got any questions for Paula or Caroline?
No.
I mean, oh no, I just have one. Just
Yes, of
just
course.
generally, obviously, transport is, even though it's quite high up on issues with quality of life, and if you can't access services, your quality of life isn't great. So transport's really important. It's always there, one of the top three. Yet it's always sidelined as it's just not brought in. It's not thought about holistically as being part of someone's life. It's just get from A to B, and it isn't. And with community transport, it absolutely isn't. It's much more about. It's not just transport; it's those connections. How serious do you feel any change with the current government or the Department of Transport, that they kind of get it, or is it just still quite down the pecking order of priorities?
Well, Caroline, I don't know if you want to answer that.
Hi
It's a big question. I
everyone.
probably know the answer.
Yeah, no, I mean, so just for general information, we meet with DFT on a monthly basis as an organisation. So if there is anything that members or the sector wants to raise, we do have that ability to go in. I think the challenge that we have as a CT sector is that we're not seen as an inherent part of the bus offer. That's one of the biggest challenges. So when policy is written or when funding is decided, we're not kind of part of that. So one of the key commitments that DFT have made in terms of working with us over the next 12 months is to try and mainstream community transport through all of DFT in terms of raising the profile, raising the knowledge, raising awareness of what community transport is and how it can be part of the solution to challenges. So we have got that commitment. It's going to be a lot of work, but yeah, I think very much DFT sees the fact, or the parts of DFT that understand and are aware of community transport, see the connections and see the value, and we've just got to try and bring everybody else along with us. So from a civil servant point of view, that's really positive, and we know that they won't typically change with any election changes that might happen. Politically, we have overall public political support for CT, but not necessarily action following that support is what I would say. And I think, Paola mentioned our manifesto. So we are looking to spend quite a lot of time really trying to influence potential new or different MPs. I think whatever happens at this election, nobody knows. You can make guesses about what's going to happen, but there will be leadership change and there will be cabinet change potentially. Even if we still have a Conservative government, I would expect change. So I definitely think everything that people can do in terms of raising it with their local MPs, it will really help when we then try and go in and have those national conversations. What we do see is where CT providers are very linked in with their MPs. If we flag anything or have any discussions, they generally turn up and lend support. So we do see that. So I think sometimes you might not always see that you have that conversation with your MP and then don't see anything. But there's been a couple of debates in central government lately, and we have had a number of local MPs who have made the effort to turn up and speak. So I think we are starting to see some change slowly. My biggest concern with lots of things is going to be over the next few years with the reduction in local authority funding and how that impacts on the kind of sustainability of local CT. I think Oxfordshire is a slightly more positive situation than maybe some other places, but that will be a challenge for everyone. Local authorities' funding is very, very tight and restricted.
Thank you, Caroline. And that actually is a really great segue to...
Not that I helped in any way with that, but
it absolutely did by mentioning local authorities, because we can go straight to Tim Darch. from the county council.
Hello.
But can I just add a tiny bit? Sorry, Tim. The other side of it that I'm hearing quite a lot, ever more so, is the not just for transport, for just generally sort of care in the community. There's an awful lot of looking towards the community, whatever that is, because it's just basically many groups of individuals, but to somehow with volunteer time that we know isn't there, solve a lot of kind of issues within health or whatever it may be. A lot of it is health focused. It does seem wildly unrealistic already. And I know if there is a change in the government, and let's say Labour is in, there will be more looking towards care in the community. And I'm so in a way, there is that you needing to manage expectations quite a bit with how we think about community transport, because it's the volunteers that are involved in it. It's substantial time. It can be quite substantial time. And just think about removing some of those barriers to help people actually do some of this without putting pressure on now you also need to be a health professional as well. It's complicated, isn't it? But I do sense a slight warning flags.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim. I said it was a nice segue and then I ruined it.
Yeah, not so nice. Not very tidy. Must try harder. Okay. Nice to see you all. Yeah, so just by way of brief introduction, I'm Tim Darch from Oxfordshire County Council, for those who don't already know me. My two main work streams, if you like, are community transport and concessionary fares. Many of you will also know that I've been at the County Council for some time prior to this current stint. I've been back for getting on for 2 years, but prior to that I did 22 years in buses and another 2 years in planning before a sort of a 5-year break. So yes, I'm back. You can take the boy out of the County Council, etc. So anyway, yes, I've put together just a very brief slide, effectively, well, not effectively, a brief slide, just to kind of illustrate where we are at the moment with various things. So I will now try to share my screen, which presumably I do by pressing share screen. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hooray, excellent. Right. Okay, so yeah, I've just put this as a list in no particular order, really, sort of a stream of consciousness, just sort of where we were, probably what I was dealing with a few moments before putting the slide together. So anyway, item one, a significant part of our £1.2 million sort of public transport budget, effectively, was directed towards improve rural transport in any way we could manage that. As you'll see further down shortly, we've managed to do that using CT in a big way. A lot of the services funded by this £800,000 have ended up being tendered in inverted commas conventional bus services because for perfectly understandable reasons we did engage with the CT sector when we knew this funding was coming, but for the difficulties with finding volunteers, drivers who are willing to work the longer hours that might be needed for peak, off-peak services and so on, we didn't get quite as much interest as we wanted. I wouldn't say hoped for, wanted. But we are now able to, we've now been able to get the CT sector involved a bit more with this money. So a tender that we awarded for 2 bus services serving villages to the north of Bicester has been won by Ability, which we're very pleased about. So we're currently talking to them about implementation. The services have been registered with the Traffic Commissioner, or the documentation is with the Traffic Commissioner. We've not had confirmation that they've approved them yet. But we're just going through all the preliminaries with them. The services are currently scheduled to start on July the 1st, and we're just really pleased that a CT operator is another CT operator is joining the list of those that are operating timetable bus services. It's great news, and it's exactly what we wanted to achieve when this budget funding became available to us. So moving on to the grant scheme, last year's grant scheme. All of the successful bidders have now received their grant funds. I should probably say that obviously we would have liked to have got more people, more schemes involved in this, but we had the sum available was £400,000, and I think we had about £1 million worth of applications. So we had to make some quite difficult decisions. One of which was that existing organisations that were already receiving grant funding, we weren't able to award it on that occasion, but we said that we would be able to do something with this year's package, which I'll come on to later. So we've been holding discussions with schemes that are looking to expand or new schemes over implementation. I've had meetings with most of those that are doing something completely new, if not all. Stop. Excellent. So yeah, I've had meetings with all of the schemes that are doing something completely new. Everyone seems to be making really good progress so far. We appreciate that, particularly for those that haven't necessarily been involved with transport schemes before. There's a steep learning curve. There's a lot to do. So we're not expecting Rome to be built in a day by any means. But yeah, we're pleased to see that things are moving. Schemes that have applied for funding for new and replacement vehicles, I think have all placed or will shortly place orders. I think at least a couple already have vehicles in place, and I'm going to go and visit one of them towards the end of the month, I think, just to have a look, which will be really satisfying. It's a fairly trivial thing, but I thought it'd be a good idea to have some stickers just acknowledging the fact that that we're involved in some way in the funding of these schemes or new vehicles. They're at County Hall. Unfortunately, I've not been at County Hall a huge amount of late, but we will hopefully be able to get them collected next week, at which point we can start distributing them either by post or in person if we're seeing any of you. And as I said, details of the grant scheme for this financial year, we're just about to launch that. Literally just drafted the emails. I just need to populate them with the many hundreds of addresses of parish councils and parish transport representatives, county councillors, and of course yourselves, the schemes. And then I'm hoping that I'll be able to send those early next week. As it says in the brackets, the funding pot this year is fairly significantly reduced relative to last year because our budget has been reduced. So we've had to bring that down a bit. I think last year, as I say, we had 400,000. This year it's going to be, I think, up to 150,000, which is disappointing. But unfortunately, we have no control over what we're allocated. So that's where we are with that. So you should be getting emails, as I say, hopefully early next week, inviting you to apply for funding from this year's grant scheme. So good news stories, imminent new community transport provision. We're in discussions with Tame and Wantage town councils regarding potential new community transport schemes in their towns. Those are going really well, really positive. And we're hoping that perhaps we can get something up and running in both places maybe later this year. It'd be really good to see if we can. Only this week, we've had 5 new bus services operated by our in-house community transport fleet, which is broadly branded as Comet. So they will be linking villages largely without or totally without public transport with the nearby towns. So we're talking Wantage, Abingdon, Bicester, Banbury and Oxford. we're just nearing the end of the week now. I think all but 2 of the services have operated at least once. We've had no issues reported. Well, for me, no news is good news. Hopefully everything's gone well. I have emailed the guys at Fleet this morning just to get an update. But yes, again, we're pleased to be sort of expanding our reach and connecting people to nearby towns where they have not really been able to make journeys by public transport for some years. More new services for more villages. The Barford, Sanford, St Michael, Hempton and Ledwell will be linked with Banbury, and Chesterton will be linked with Bicester by new services operated by Outbus Bartons, starting the week commencing 29th of April. Risborough area community bus is extending their existing service to Chinner to replace a previous conventional, in inverted commas, bus service which was withdrawn. That starts on the 7th of May. And the overall impact of all these new additions and new services is that I think probably by the end of May, we think that every Oxfordshire parish with a population of more than 100 will have some kind of bus service.
That's quite amazing, Tim.
Well, it was something that Dave was very keen on. Was kind of meeting that challenge, and I think, to be honest, without CT, I don't think we would have done it, because obviously there are a lot of places we're covering that aren't really, wouldn't probably be appealing, certainly on a commercial basis, for conventional bus services, and wouldn't be commercially viable either. And if we were to subsidise them, our budget would probably be eaten up a lot quicker than it is doing it this way. So, as I say, CT's played a very significant role in enabling us to meet this target. So, a very big thank you to everyone who's involved for their input. So actually, let's just jump to the last item there, because just in keeping with the CT theme, Community Transport Directory, myself and Emily had a chat earlier this week, and we're looking to do an update shortly. So we'll be contacting everyone who's currently in the directory, hopefully within the next few weeks, just to make sure that the details we have for you are up to date and accurate. Hopefully you're still operating. There inevitably will be 1 or 2 schemes that do fall off the list, but hopefully there won't be too many. And we're looking at ways.
Added, Tim.
Sorry?
And new ones added.
And new ones added. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Emily. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Positive.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. We're hoping to find ways to make it easier for people to find their local scheme, because currently we do appreciate that it is slightly challenging the way the directory is currently laid out. So we'll be perhaps exploring some mapping. We now have a GIS resource, in inverted commas, a lad called Aidan in our wider team, who is very knowledgeable about these things. So we might see if we can get him involved, and see if we can get some hovering kind of thing going, whereby you hover your cursor over a certain area and it brings up some details of the schemes that serve it. That's the idea at the back of our minds anyway. It may not be possible, but we'll certainly have a go. So yes, just a final point just away from community transport, concessionary fares. The new scheme year has started now, which means that the first claims for the current month will be being submitted by operators in May. We are awaiting the revised claim forms from Sistra, who are our concessionary fares consultant. The pre-COVID regime, whereby previous revenue and patronage was protected in some way. Operators were receiving sums that were more akin to what they would have received before COVID. That now has finished, so we're essentially moving back to a standard scheme whereby one form will be submitted for the patronage that you've actually accrued over the course of a month, and you'll be and operators who are on the pre-COVID regime will move to that, and we will be reimbursed on an actuals basis. However, the good news is that we do reimburse CT operators at 100% of the fare forgone, and that will continue. In my inexperience, it's become apparent. I wasn't really aware of this until quite recently, that we are one of very few authorities that offer 100% reimbursement, and we're very pleased to be able to do so. And there's no sign that that will be coming to an end anytime soon. So
That's really good,
that's
Tim.
it. Yeah, well, as I say, we're glad to be able to do it, and we know how important it is to the schemes that we're able to, that are claiming concessionary fares from us. So that's it from me. Let me stop sharing, and I'm sure, well, I will certainly try and answer any questions if there are any. So let me stop sharing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure
now.
they'll fold it, because you can have a general discussion now. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Paula and
okay.
Caroline. Just for your questions, I think also just what's working well, because you do such a good job. That you're doing something right. Some of you are still recruiting new volunteers. Quite how you're doing that, I don't know. And I know it is a bit of a different world for minibus schemes, because you have got a very, very limited pool of potential minibus volunteers. But just general questions, and if you have something specific about what Tim's talked about, that's absolutely fine. If you just put your hand up, or a real hand, or yellow hand. Andy, I think.
Hi. Perhaps, hopefully this is the right framework to ask the question. Oxentime.
Andy, can you just say which scheme you're representing?
So I'm a director of first and last mile buses, north and south of Ensham.
Brilliant, thank you.
So yeah, Oxentime. I had heard that we might be able to get our buses shown on the electronic boards at bus stops and places. I just wondered if there's any progress on this, Tim.
It's not something I have a huge amount of awareness of, Andy. So I can certainly look into it. If you could drop me a quick email, I can look into it, certainly.
Thank you.
Great, that's an question in action. Lovely. Wendy, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, sorry, just a quick point really for Tim. I was just wondering why the applications for the funding the year 24-25 have been left to now. It's just that it's very difficult to budget and plan when you don't know if you're actually in a financial year that you don't know, if anything, how much funding you're going to get.
Well, that's basically because, for the same reason for us, we only found out really a couple of weeks ago how much money we would have for this.
Right.
So we obviously can't make a grant scheme available until we know how much money we've got to make available, and that is, it's not ideal. I don't really quite understand why that's the way it is, but it does seem to be the way it is. So that's the short answer, is that we've only just really found out how much money we had to work with.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay.
And Wendy's from the Independent Advice. Oh no, you're not. Sorry, Vale Community Impact. Anthea.
Hi. You were talking about the difficulty in getting volunteers. We advertise in the parish magazine, and we also take what do you call it, a little marquee, a stand at the annual fair.
And do you get people coming still?
Yeah, get people in from that, yes. Yeah.
So it's not even word of mouth. You're just getting people offering.
Well,
that's great.
We take a stall and people come forward. We put an advert in the link, and people, they talk to somebody who they think might be interested.
Do you ever say roughly how much time it will take? How much you might?
Yes, because they always ask.
Yeah.
And we always say, well, we don't expect anybody to do more than one a week. Well, how long does it take? Piece of string. Eye hospital?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Don't ask.
Some of them, if it's just an injection, you know, they're in and out in half an hour. But, you know, you've got to tell the truth, otherwise you'll go through all the Octobadge stuff and then they'll vanish because they get a long eye hospital.
Yeah. It's always the eye hospital, isn't it?
Yeah, you tell the truth. You know, and we also tell them they can refuse, you know, if you've got to go up to the Horton.
And don't feel bad about that.
Whitney from Chalgrove, that's the day.
Mm.
So you've got to tell the truth or you'll lose them.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
Just wanted to make a little comment that last time I was at the JR, there were 5 taxis in the labour beyond the roundabout.
Yeah, they're always in.
They got a bit relaxed.
Yeah.
And also ambulances parking in our bays across the West Wing.
Yes.
But they're allowed to, aren't they?
I don't know.
It's slightly annoying, but they take priority. But the taxis, that's just because they're not going around. The officers, okay, I'll get in touch with Matt. Meryl.
I was just going to add, in terms of recruiting volunteers, in the information that we send out, we always say that you can fit driving for Attic or volunteering for Attic round your life. And we say that, you know, one of the advantages of joining Attic is that you don't have to commit yourself to a regular time, a week, a month, you know, and as Anthea says, you can say no. I think that's one way. Okay, you need people who are prepared not to say no too often, obviously. But it is true in that, you know, since you can say no and you don't know what's going to come up at any time, you can fit your driving round other things in your life. I think one thing that puts people off volunteering is that they've got, you know, they're all bit positive. Usually it's always busy people who are volunteering for something else and they don't want to mess up their other treasured commitments.
Yeah, that's true.
And could I also say, just jumping on, sorry, while we're talking about parking at hospitals, I always understood that at the Nuffield, you could use the ambulance car spaces outside the main entrance.
Yeah.
But I find that when I try and use those, I get very, very much glared at by ambulance drivers who are either already there or who then arrive. And I'm now frightened to park there because I don't like being glared at. But are we still entitled, in theory, to use those spaces?
Yes, but let me double check. So the Nuffield is I don't. So just for CTA, we run a sort of hospital parking permit scheme with Oxfordshire University Hospitals, but really I would say it's mostly recognised at the JR and Churchill, and then the Nuffield's kind of yeah. I don't know. What are you?
That hospital hasn't got enough spaces, you know, for
it hasn't got enough spaces
anyway. So it's a huge problem generally. I can understand that.
And then you get the glaring. But let me just double check that nothing has changed, and they're actually getting that information because they might not know that as a volunteer driver you're kind of deemed the same. So I'll find that out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sue.
Hi, afternoon everyone. I've recently taken over trying to promote new drivers for Nettlebed Good Neighbours scheme and their volunteer drivers. I'm just curious because we've hardly had any and we've lost quite a few during lockdown and things. So I think we've got 3 drivers at the moment. So I'm trying to recruit more. But my question is, how do other groups give money or donations to people's fuels? How does that work with your groups?
Does anyone want to answer?
Well, we have a list worked out of all of the locations that we go to, all the hospitals, all the GPs and hearing centres and things like that. We work it out from one postcode in the village, which is the village hall, to wherever, say, the JR. And we have a list then of the prices. And so we tell people when they phone and ask for a lift, we say, yeah, we can do that. It will cost you this much money. So the driver will keep that money, and if they're given anything in excess, then that is a donation to the scheme, which helps pay for our dead miles, i.e. if the driver has to leave the person at the appointment because it's going to be 3 hours or something, the driver can go home or go away or do something else. But the driver will be paid for 4 journeys and not just the 2.
And if the driver chooses not to take the money, then that's fine. There's no...
No, we say they have to take the money.
Okay.
Because you get a division. We don't want this division that the do-gooders with loads of money will say, oh, it doesn't matter. Well, some of us without so much money need the money. And one thing I would like to ask the various people, Emily and Tim Darch and people, has any progress been made on 45p a mile? Because this is now almost ridiculous with prices as it is.
Yes, and actually that's in the manifesto that CTA UK are pushing. So no movement has been made, but it's nationally being pushed for that something has to be done to reflect the cost of living and just general costs. So yes, just on the point about balancing it, if the I think a good practice scheme is that 45p goes to the driver, so they are never out of pocket. They're giving their time freely, but the cost of running their car they shouldn't have to bear. And also it makes it more accessible for all people to volunteer, to be a volunteer driver if they can. If it's a driver that really doesn't want it, they can donate it to the scheme.
Okay, yeah.
But they should really take it because it's fair to the other drivers. Also, as that person will only ever want potentially that volunteer to take them. It just sort of destabilizes it.
Yeah. It's just it's sort of quite delicate at the moment, and I'm just trying to sort of recruit more people.
In the past, then, was it donations? Is that?
I think it was. I think the driver kept the money. But I say I wasn't involved at that time, so I'm just trying to sort of manage it and promote it. Really,
I'm happy to talk it through with you.
Brilliant,
separately, and obviously everyone has a slightly different way of doing it, but on the whole, there is that kind of norm, which is that 40.
Obviously, lots of hands up, so I don't know if it's about the same thing.
I know it could be, couldn't it? Right,
Emily. Kath here. I just want
to. Yes.
I don't know how to do this, mind. I don't know whether you can see it, but we have
I can't see you at all.
You can't see me at all.
No.
Right. What am I doing to do? Oh, hold on.
It's your video. Oh, look! I can ask you to start your video.
Oh, thank you. Thought I had. I don't know whether you can see this.
Still not done anything, actually, Kath.
Oh wow. What's wrong?
Kath, shall I just go to, because Jane, I think, has had her hand up, her yellow hand up for quite a while. Or is this about volunteering? Oh, she's muted. Yeah. Jane.
Shall I go on with my question? Well, not
yes,
my question.
Please.
I suppose it was really, I was going to actually ask exactly the same question about the 45 pence a mile and the kind of, has any movement been made on it? But just with Sue just mentioning about the new Nettlebed scheme, so I run the Children's Volunteers scheme, and we've actually been really successful over the last few years in recruiting new drivers. I think, like the lady said about holding stands at sort of village fetes and things like that, we do find that is incredibly popular because people come, we run Tombola stall on every event, they come, they talk, and then you get into a discussion and they say, oh, I'd really love to volunteer, and before you know it, they're one of your volunteer drivers. So that's worked really well for us. We also are incredibly active on Facebook. Obviously there's a generation that's kind of moving away from Facebook, but I think some of the slightly younger volunteers that we've wanted to attract are still great, followers of Facebook and do look at it. And we have got quite a few people through that as well. But then on the other point about saying to people, we say if you do an hour a week, an hour a day, or even an hour a year, every little bit helps. We never expect anything out of people. We do have lots of very regular people, but we have people that do it when they're on holiday or at weekends and evenings if there is the desire for it. And the other thing that we've really concentrated on is doing thank you events. So it really helps with engagement of volunteers. I mean, we have quite a lot of volunteers for many other things we do, not just the drivers. But we're holding an event on May the 2nd up at Amwell Springs, which is a local brewery, negotiated free use of their space, reduced beer prices, and it's just to say thank you. So we get engagement. We've asked people to bring friends that perhaps aren't volunteers, and we'll make sure that we've got plenty of information there to give out to people. So for me, it is, you know, I spend most of my working day communicating in different ways to different people, just to keep the message out there. And, you know, Cholsey is a relatively small village, but we've got a lot of volunteer drivers now on our books.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
very short of drivers moving. You can see from the amount of badges that I request for the driving scheme.
That's brilliant. And actually, that's a really good, that recognition that came out in the volunteer vision work that we did with OCVA is that, you know, volunteering, giving time to anything, it's two-way. As soon as you feel it's an unpaid job, then you get, it's really difficult to enjoy it. And actually to have that acknowledgement, recognition that what you're doing is a good thing is really important. Caroline.
Sorry, I only wanted to just come in quickly on the mileage allowance. Not to say anything different because there isn't any. We continuously push it and make recommendations at every point that there is a budget statement. However, just to make sure that people are aware that you can add the 5p per passenger. So if you do have 3 passengers in the vehicle, that is an extra 15p that you can pay them on top of the 45p. So it's not like 5p if you have anyone in the vehicle. So the more people that are in the vehicle, the more you can pay that volunteer. Obviously not for dead miles, because or the miles we have no passengers. I never really like that term, dead miles.
No, I don't like it either.
The kind of, you know, where you don't have any passengers, it is 45p. But yeah, just to make sure. I know it then becomes more of an administrative nightmare if you want to take that route, but it does mean that you can increase the funding a little bit to the volunteer drivers in that that way. Because I think even if there was an increase to the AMAP rate, we're not going to be talking significance. It might be 5p or 10, like I think, you know, or 10p at the very most. We're not going to see it go up by like 20, 30, 40p. And even one of the things that I would have a quick question for, because one of the things that I don't feel we, from a CTA perspective, have got a strong enough view on is how would you afford to pay for this? Because if it went up by 15p, is it that the cost would go on to the passenger?
Yeah,
or,
it would go.
You know, because there's an implication for that, which might not be politically supported, because we're making journeys more expensive. But that it's just one of the things. But yeah, just to make sure people are aware.
Yeah, that's true. And it would be mostly the passenger. Bill, is this on the it'll be through car scheme, so probably go to you, Bill.
Reference to the charging. With Didcot, we pick up clients from all the villages surrounding, so we can't have a standard fee for the Oxford hotel hospitals or anywhere else, because we have to travel out to the villages, then travel to the hospital, back again, so that increases the mileage. So each driver I've issued with a calculator, so they base the cost to the client on the mileage.
Yeah.
And as far as the 45 pence is concerned, that is absolutely vital. It is certainly enough to run a vehicle of your own. It may not be sufficient to run a new car, not with maintenance and servicing and whatever, but I've kept records of all my vehicles that I've used over the past 12 years, and the 45 pence, which it is now, amply covers any expenses I have while I'm running clients. The fact is, I have a car anyway, So using it to volunteer is of no cost to them. All the repairs and renewals I will be paying anyway. So the 45 pence in effect is purely and simply fuel. We're lucky that the fuel doesn't cost that much even now. And that 45 pence covers that plus any minor mishaps that may happen. So adding,
I think it's quite an individual basis, isn't it? Because it depends how much you use your car. It depends how much volunteer driving you do, I suppose, as well.
Well, yes, if you own a car and you're using it volunteering, then it's there. It doesn't really matter how many miles you do volunteering or privately. It's going to cost you a basic amount anyway. So all you're doing is covering your fuel costs. So I'm afraid I disagree with particularly charging extra 5 pence per person.
Although
if I carry 2 passengers,
that's been available for years and years now, which it isn't particularly used.
Well, I hope not.
But yeah. Thank you, Bill, because you may well get your way anyway with the the new government. So they probably can't afford it. Right, David.
Firstly, can I say in relation, in one of my many other hats, the hospitals are now taking much more seriously the idea of actually giving hospital appointments at times where people can get there by public transport, because they've always just spewed them out by computer and then people have to worry how to get there. So they are now taking that seriously, and that actually might make it easier for volunteer car drivers, because they won't have quite so many antisocial hours to get for appointments.
Are they?
Yeah, I've seen a letter. I think I know what you're talking about an appointment which did refer to when people were likely to be able to get a lift.
Oh.
That's what you're talking about, David.
Yes, they are taking that seriously now.
I can't remember the wording now. It's worth finding out.
So
okay, noted.
The other thing is just because I'm curious about the new ability services north of Bicester. Are there timetables, roughly the timetables that were proposed last year by the county council, like 5 services a day to these villages?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there may be some, there's always a few little tweaks here and there. But yes, by and large, they're pretty much what we put out to what we put out to tender, I think, is probably what we'll be roughly doing. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Could I just mention about, I know there's been ongoing issues for some car schemes about if they had organisation blue badges, and that's not gone away. It's still very much there. So I think I need to try to, I know there's a way, because I think, was it Chelgrove? I think it was you managed to do quite a good job with your argument. I'm pretty sure it was you, but it was how they've done the form. If you were to put it accurately in, it will just immediately disregard you for an organisation blue badges, because they will assume, well, just use that the people that have got their blue badges, they can use their own blue badges. But obviously that's not the point of an organisation blue badge. So I'm going back and forth quite a lot, and they're absolutely not moving. So I'm going to, there are 2 options. One, I'm going to speak with the local councillor who wears the hat for that sort of area. And 2, I'm going to just look at the form again and see exactly what you need to be putting in and what you don't need to put in. Because I think it's what you don't need to put in is one of the issues. Because it is a bit of a, it's another barrier for people volunteer driving who have their passengers have real problems with access, but they haven't got a blue badge. It's just but they're generally okay other days, but they're having a bad day. It just is helpful. It's not abusing the system, and that's, I think, the problem is that the assumption is it's abusing the system. It's a bit like our conversations that we will be having with traffic when the traffic filters come in, on how we're going to work with volunteer drivers on a sort of like a white list that the Oxford University hospitals have. So I need to go back, but I'll have a look to see what examples, because I'm pretty sure, Anthea, your scheme, and Cholsey, I think. Oh, and I can see Wendy, right. I've got hands. Anthea.
Yeah. I can't take the credit because Annie did all that, but I know she went back through our historical sheets.
Back and forth, back and forth.
Who was who needed a chair. But I'm reminded, if you want to make a case, of a lady that came to us. She said, I'm awfully embarrassed to use you because I can drive perfectly well. I drive in and out of the village all the time. I can drive to Tesco. But I got to the JR and the only place I could find to park was right up in the trees. And I'm able, but I'm not that able. I was too far to walk. She burst into tears when she dried her eyes. She drove home, missed her appointment. It isn't just having no legs that stops you.
Thank you. That's exactly what I mean. Caroline.
I was only going to say, if you do have any issues, I don't know if Tim's still on, but if you do have any issues from the local authority point of view, just because DFT guidance isn't actually very helpful, because it states that CT isn't typically eligible for organisational blue badges. However, when I spoke to DFT, they were surprised that their language said that, because they were like, oh no, you are eligible. And I was like, well, your guidance says that we're not, so maybe you should change that. But they were saying that, you know, the kind of, because it talks about care and support. So actually they did feel that kind of doing that door-to-door service counted as care and support. So if it's more cultural than just a couple of questions worded badly on the form, if there are any problems with the council, then we can always help provide a statement.
That'll be really useful, Karen, because I think it's both.
Do it anyway.
I think it is cultural too. Wendy.
Yeah, I'd just like to say on the blue badge front, I mean, we're quite a large transport scheme. We had them for years and years and years, and now none of our drivers have got them. I've been to the MP about it, had a letter from Parliament about it. I've argued with Oxfordshire County Council Blue Badge Department about it, and unfortunately, Oxfordshire County Council Blue Badge Department are incredibly strict. So we actually decided to run a project of getting our own clients their badge and helping them to get it. And the trouble that we've had in helping them has been incredible. The one or two where we've gone to different county councils, been done in a week and no problem. So it is an internal rules that are so strict in Oxfordshire, I'm afraid.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not, sorry, obviously, you know, I'm representing the authority. I can't pretend to know, well, I don't know enough about this issue to really be able to comment on it with any sort of authority, but obviously if there's anything I can do as a sort of a middle person, if people feel they need, you know, some support or whatever, then obviously just let me know and I will do what I can to
Shall
liaise.
I coordinate it, Tim? Because I think we do need quite a loud voice just to make sure, because they have made it. It's so obvious that it's they don't want to basically process as many.
Tim, this is I'm Paula from the Vale. We did speak to you about this last year and told you our situation, and we haven't heard anything back at all, except that we're struggling more and more and more to get these blue badges for individuals.
You told me personally?
Yeah, Wendy spoke to you about it last year.
Yeah, when you came to visit, Tim.
I don't think I've been to visit.
Yeah, you have. Or we might have had a face-to-face.
No, face-to-face
screen like this, actually. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, if that's the case, apologies. Obviously, that was, you know, no malicious intent. But I'm more than happy to to try and do what I can.
I think
at
it
this
needs
point.
definitely a coordinated voice on it now, because it's gone on for quite a while, and I know it's been there for me to prioritise, but actually I now really do see it as, if we let it slip for too long, it's going to affect quite a lot of things.
Well, let's keep
So
in touch on
Tim,
that.
should we have a chat about that? Yeah. Okay, good. Meryl.
I don't know whether you're going to mention the research by Leah Raven.
Oh, thank you, Meryl. I forgot.
I got, well, when was it? I think 2022, I think it was actually. I was interviewed by a Canadian researcher who was working on a study of community transport in Oxfordshire in conjunction with Oxford University. And she spent a long time interviewing operators of community transport schemes of all kinds, and published a report. She's recently emailed me a copy of this, an article, 2 articles about this report, which have been published in very learned journals. And she's said she'd copied those articles to the county council. Tim, I don't know who, possibly you.
Yeah, I have seen them. Yeah.
And also to the Community Transport Association. I think this was a brilliant piece of research, I have to say. If you read it as a community transport operator, you think, gosh, I do really feel important after reading this. It's also very perceptive in my view. Yes, and I nearly introduced it in terms of lobbying, because to me, this is the most brilliant and useful and perceptive lobbying tool on behalf of community transport that I've yet seen. And it's first of all, you have to get your dictionary out and your search engine,
just an academic
because
paper.
It's very academic in terms of the terminology that it uses, and because we are schemes that benefit from an approach called phonensis, which I had to look up. And even when I looked it up, it didn't really make much sense. But somewhere she says this is problems being solved by people who want to do good and want to help people and make a practical response to a practical problem, in a wise and caring way. Anyway, we're examples of phonensis. But she's pointing out the strong care element and community support elements of community transport schemes, as well as obviously just getting people from A to Z, and has heard from people all the kinds of added value that they give to their passengers in terms of helping them in and out, getting them to the right department, possibly popping into the co-op on the way back. No doubt all things that you're not supposed to do, perhaps according to your coordinator, but which happens. And I just think that if we want a good lobbying tool, academic or not, this is not all academic. This is something that we ought to have a look at and publicise and quote from, because I think it's brilliant. And one of the things, I suspect it was probably me who said this, that she flags up is the fact that the hospital authorities don't take community transport seriously, don't see us as part of the transport system getting people to their services. We're just an add-on if you can't do anything else. And that this needs to be looked at. We need to be taken seriously and built into their system as a part. And there are various kind of recommendations, and pointing out that we're of interest to different national government departments, but obviously only the Department of Transport probably thinks they ought to do anything about it. So just to ask Community First and the CTA to pick this up. I'm very, very happy to help and publicise it and endorse its findings as a local volunteer. But I think it's a brilliant piece of work. And
Meryl, you've so nicely concluded basically this network meeting on a really lovely positive. What it's made me think is actually I will basically take the actions. I'll listen to this. I'll pull out the actions. They'll be for me and for others. I'll share the report that Meryl has just mentioned.
People ought to see it, I think.
But actually,
wade through it. It's worth.
I might get back in touch with Leah to say, not just the executive summary, but can we just pull out the highlights and make it a little bit more or just plain English, just
less academic?
I did actually email her,
maybe even with some pictures
to say how brilliant it was, and she said, "Oh, I do hope it'll be a useful tool." So I'm sure she will be receptive.
Yeah, no, and it is. It just, I think, just if I could pull out some of the highlights, and then that'll be something that perhaps we could all use. That's really good, because again, it does highlight how important community transport is and the value of it, but also to not just assume it's this free resource that you can just keep adding to and adding to and adding to. Just take it seriously. We're all people giving our time to things. But you are right about the hospital trusts. They haven't ever particularly taken it seriously. In fact, they have no real process or procurement or anything that values community transport. It's always been a problem having conversations. There are some changes now that there's the Integrated Care Board, but I think it'll be really limited, and I can already see that it's shrinking. They're having to restructure already, and they have only been in existence for a year. So yeah, I will definitely pull out the highlights. We really do need to think about the organisational blue badges, but actually blue badges generally, that's something we just need to sort out. And there are other actions as well, but I will pull it all out, and then I'll send it round to everyone that's here, but also just part of the wider network that weren't able to be here today. But thank you very, very much to the presenters, Paula and Caroline and Tim, but also more importantly, is actually you for turning up and running your schemes and sharing your knowledge and expertise. Thank you very much. And hopefully we can have some positive changes, but obviously keep to that 45p per mile bill, because we don't need more. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Soon.
Nice to see you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.